Welcome into the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball podcast on the KSR Podcast Network. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined down here in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama at SEC Tip-Off 26 here at the Grand Bohemian Mountain Brook Hotel. Actually, I don't know if I want to reveal all of that, so just ignore that I said that. But we are in somewhere in Birmingham. But hey, we're here covering all 16 SEC teams, but they've separated it in a very unique way this year, Zachary, where it's 8 teams on day one with both men and women going for each respective program, and then day 2 will feature the other 8 that we missed, both the men and women. So last year we were able to do this, and it was all 16 teams. It was just, we got to get every take imaginable after that, but it was a little chaotic, a little bit, greater gaps today to kind of regather your thoughts. So kind of incomplete doing this show, but hey, that's all right. It's Tuesday night. We got to make sure that we do this. So welcome back to the Sources Say podcast. Zack, Geoghegan.
Yeah, thanks, Jackery. Happy to be here. They switched up the format. Usually we would have like a men's day and then a women's day. I prefer how this works out because it allows us the easy opportunity to go back-to-back with Kenny Brooks, the women's team, leading right into Mark Pope, and the men's team. So that was actually very nice. They were the very last team, though. So we had to go through, who did we talk to? Mike White had a plane mishap, apparently, at like 8 in the morning, I guess, getting here. The whole Georgia team was late, but we got to talk to Calipari. Nate Oates was up here as well. Mark Byington. I'm trying to think of all the any other. Dawn Staley. We'll talk about her later. Sean Miller. So we got to see a lot of the kind of the bigger names. And then tomorrow we've got like Rick Barnes. And there's one other big name tomorrow besides Rick Barnes. Who is it? Who am I thinking of? Stephen Pearl is definitely a big one. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Todd Golden, that's the one I was thinking of. So we'll be able to, I think we'll be able to hit all of those 3 tomorrow before we actually end up heading out. So, but yeah, it's been a long, busy day, but we've gotten to talk a lot of basketball all day long, so it's been awesome.
You know what's even more awesome is the interview that you're going to get here to wrap up the show, bringing on ESPN's Myron Medcalf. Absolutely incredible what he does, and he talks the ins and outs, the ups and downs, and lefts and rights of the Kentucky Wildcats, and just the rest of the landscape of the SEC and how Kentucky stacks up in the SEC. So tune in to the end of the show to hear and watch that. It's going to be a lot of fun. We appreciate him and coming on and using his very valuable time with ESPN because, the worldwide leader needs him all hands on deck down here at SEC Media Day. So we appreciate him taking a little bit of time with us. But day one here in Birmingham, Zach, Kentucky-related takeaways in terms of, let's start with Mark Pope. What stood out to you in his little brief 10-minute interview that we got with the second-year coach here in Lexington?
I think the main takeaway was one of the first things, the very first question actually that he was asked was about Otega Oweh, who our own Jack Pilgrim, sitting to my left here, had reported yesterday anyways that Otega Oweh was already back at practice on the message board, KS board. We have a promo code, right? KSR1 still going, I think? UK1. UK1 for a promo code at KS board. Yes, and then Pope basically said that, we had Oweh come back at practice, and they were all kind of on eggshells, is what he said. They were all a little nervous watching him out there running up and down the floor until he took off from outside the free throw line, another Pope hyperbole, and threw down a massive dunk or something like that. And I liked his little line. He said, yes, to be young, young people, just be able to do that after missing the last 10 weeks because of turf toe. All of a sudden, he's just back like he never skipped a beat. So that's great for Kentucky, less than 2 weeks out from the Purdue game, the exhibition. You've got Otega Oweh back in your lineup. And even Otega confirmed as well. He said, yep, I'm full go, no restrictions. I'm doing every activity, all the competitiveness of it. So that's great to hear right now because you really haven't had too much. Like, he hasn't practiced with Andrea Yelovich until yesterday, you would imagine. So they're building all that chemistry. That was probably my main takeaway. He was asked about the 33-pointers. That kind of whole narrative was spawned again. And I did like his answer. It's kind of stuff that we've talked about all offseason long. And he even said, he was like, we might not have on paper the top end shooters, but we've got a bunch. We've got depth, and they want to run the ball. They want to push the pace a lot more. And he basically said, run the damn ball. But yes, the basketball version of that, which whatever that would be run, but in new era. So But he basically said that they're gonna try and squeeze out more possessions out of each game, and the way you do that is by pushing the pace, and as we'll learn from when Myron comes on, talking about playing a little bit more aggressive defense and try and maybe force some more turnovers that way. Just get more possessions out of the game to give yourself more opportunities to make those shots. So he says that he could see himself getting to that 33-pointer mark again this season, maybe even more so than last season, just because they will be able to get more possessions and maybe have more depth at the actual 3-point shooting area. They'll have just more pieces to be able to do that. And then a little bit of a Jaden Quaintance update. Not really, because we're just at that point right now. But anything else really stick out from Pope? I feel like the Ortega stuff was definitely the main thing that he was talking about.
You missed the best part, Zach.
Well, hold on. It's been a long day. Can you give me a hint? Give me a one-word hint.
9.
Oh, yes. A lot of weird connections with the number 9 going on right now. Yes, and the number 9 in the AP poll and all that.
Mark Pope said that he, a little bit of a controversial ranking for Kentucky. Yes, Kentucky's in the top 10 to open the season. The first AP poll came out on Monday. Yay, excellent. Go Cats. We're so excited. But number 9. Ooh, wait, number 9. Ahead of number 9, kind of had the destiny appeal. And, I think that you got to see the full list of AP voters. One voter put Kentucky all the way up at number 2 overall in the AP, and that I also agree. I think the lowest that a voter put Kentucky was at 15 overall, I believe. So we know the range there, but there are people that Ken Palm has Kentucky, listed at number 4 to open the season. So it is, somewhat of a controversial take to have Kentucky on the bottom end of that top 10. If you are, banking on Jaden Quaintance to be healthy, if you are banking on the depth and no, injuries and all those things, if everything works as planned, I think on paper this team's very clearly better than the 9th best overall on the outside looking in of the Elite 8. If you're just looking in terms of a straight up, number translation to March Madness. But, Pope said he liked where things stood with number 9 because he said number 9 just keeps popping up in my life everywhere, and it's destiny for what Kentucky is hoping and expecting to achieve this year.
Yeah, and Jalen Lowe even talked. We asked him about that when we did our little player interviews, and he was like, "Yeah, we were talking about that when the poll got released." And he's like, "Trent Noah's number 9 too. That's why he wore it." So you do have that whole coincidence of the number 9 there, which is funny, and it's fun to play lean into it, but. I mentioned it. I feel like the last time we did this podcast, and the difference between 9 and whatever 4 or 5, especially in the preseason. And Stephen Peak behind the scenes here made the point that the difference between 4 and 9 in March is the difference between a 1 seed and a 3 seed. But right now, the difference between 4 and 9 is very, very minimal, if anything. That actually means. Something that's real. So it is fun. It's just kind of fun to look at and see how it all stacks up. But it is, I think it's more notable that of the, 60 AP voters, no one had them lower than 15. Mm-hmm. So, even, kind of your biggest pessimist believes that Kentucky is a top 15 team in the country. And that's probably the bigger takeaway, I think, at least that I take from that whole AP poll.
Anything else from Pope? I don't think there was a whole lot of new, the Jaden Quaintance thing was, more, I guess the newsy update was that Jaden Quaintance will play for Kentucky in 2025, 2026. I think that's he's been saying that, but to put it in black and white, Jaden Quaintance will be playing for the Kentucky Wildcats. I think fans will appreciate that update. Now, when that is, again, that's, I know what I feel in my heart of hearts when he's going to be playing again. I feel pretty good about that assessment as a, don't rule out mid-December, but he's going to be full go by January, the start of SEC play, and I feel pretty strongly about that. But, still there's some gray area there, but the black and whiteness of the, he is going to be playing, I think fans can feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, like you say, he's not putting time stamps on it or anything like that.
Except that he's moving at just a historic pace.
Yes, he really leans into the hyperbole when he's talking about Jaden's recovery. So I guess that's fine. I mean, you'd rather hear that than I guess them him being like, well, we don't really know, things like that. So it is nice to see. I did want to ask. Our time talking to the players all got cut short, but I was actually going to ask all of them. I was going to say, does Jaden Quaintance really carry a basketball everywhere he goes around campus? Because I feel like it's not just a bit for him. Like, that's something that he just does. So I didn't get to ask that question. Sorry, fans. But I think the answer is probably yes. Because the kid loves basketball. That's for sure.
Yeah, he said it even at UK Media Day that, there was a student reporter that said, hey, I saw you walking to class yesterday dribbling a basketball. He was like, yeah. So what?
Slides, probably.
Yeah. So what about it? I think that was probably the main gist of it from Mark Pope. In terms of the players, Otega Owe just kind of carries himself in a very like, hey, I'm the SEC preseason player of the year. Pretty humble, and also in a way where a reporter asked like, hey, when did you know that you were going to be SEC preseason player of the year? Like, was it something that you just kind of penciled in that was going to be? He was like, actually, I had no idea. I, kind of always wanted it. Obviously, this is something that a recognition that I was waiting for, but it was something that I was definitely not certain was going to come, and I was just kind of waiting impatiently, like the rest of you guys, for that news to drop. And he kind of had a little giddy moment with Brandon Wells, the UK strength and conditioning coach, about like when that news dropped, and he kind of had like a little giddy moment, like, yeah, I earned it. Finally he got to celebrate kind of the same way we did about it. But and then talked about Jalen Lowe. I said, he's also an all SEC player. You guys have those. You can be the co-faces of the team. He was like, that's my PG. That's how it should be. That's exactly what we want people to view him as, because Jalen Lowe's a really, really good basketball player, and he's deserving of that praise. So some very confident group, but some they were humble as well.
Yeah. I asked Jalen, do you pay attention to the award season stuff, anything like that? And he said, it might have come across my timeline once or twice, kind of sly, so he definitely saw it. He was didn't want to kind of really talk about it. But one thing that did get brought up when we were talking to him was, the shot selection stuff, and kind of how, they had a conversation with Mark Pope, or Jalen did back in the transfer portal, and that's one of the things Pope told him then was like, you took the toughest shots in the country, and like, here's the numbers that we have to prove it. That's going to change here. And then you kind of asked Jalen, so how does it actually feel now that you're in practice? Does it actually feel like it's different? He says it does, and it's solely because of the players that are around him. He says, I just have teammates around me now that just make life so much easier. I doubt he's lying, because if you just look at Kentucky's roster compared to Pitt's last year, you're just going to see the talent discrepancy is massive in Kentucky's favor. So his life is just a lot easier. And we even asked him, he's like, do you catch yourself taking shots that you would have taken at Pitt that you're maybe like turning down now? And I'll have to go back and re-listen to the answer, but he basically just said that, it's not really something he thinks about, because he doesn't get put in those situations as often where he has to necessarily force up any bad shots. So, some good stuff from him. We didn't really get to talk to Denzel Aberdeen because I thought I had more time, and then I go over there and I got 90 seconds with him before we got pulled away. So unfortunately didn't get too much from him. But Otega and Jalen were both great.
You know who else is great?
Factor Meals.
Our friends with Factor Meals. I'll be honest. I've been pretty excited about this. I think we still got.
Should I plug in your laptop?
I think we're good. I think we got 10%. So we're all right. We're just gonna risk this. We're just gonna see what happens. Hopefully everything goes well. Myron's on his way out. I've been kind of giddy to talk about this because it's been a good week. We got the little package.
Squad-tober.
We got the package from Factor last week, and I've thoroughly enjoyed every single day. It comes in just this beautiful container. You open it up, it's dry ice. It's just perfectly placed in there. You pull your meals out, and you go, just so delicious, so scrumptious. Put them in your fridge. Whenever you're ready for them, go in there, pick one out. Ooh, Thai peanut chicken salad. Excuse me. Oh, sounds good. Let's see what else we have. Ooh, is that a Southwest chicken with, that sounds absolutely delicious. Just every single meal that I had over the course of the last week leading up to this very moment was absolutely stellar. And all of it is due to our friends at Factor Meals. We're so grateful for each and every one of them. Tell me about your Factor experience. What has that been like for you over the last week?
Yeah, so I'm not usually lucky enough to be able to participate in stuff like this, but I was this week. Shout out to Maria for helping us out. Yeah, so I think the best part about the box that it came in is it gave me a free ice pack, a giant ice pack that we're going to keep in the fridge or freezer and use whenever we need to get, bust it out for a tailgate or something. So that was nice. But the meals are awesome. If you're not having like salads like Jack and actually want to eat real food like I was, they got that too. So I had the shrimp and grits was absolutely the best one I had because you got a lot of shrimp in there and the grits are really good. But yeah, I had a pot roast one that was really good. There's a salmon one that we were eating as well. I had a mac and cheese barbecue pulled pork situation that was really good as well. So yeah, you just popped them in the microwave for a couple minutes and they came out excellent. It was my lunch for probably the last 4 days leading into coming down to Birmingham. So it is an ad, but it's a tasty ad actually.
An ad that like I would absolutely do this if this were not just an ad. Like I would actually get this and would thoroughly enjoy this and tell my friends about it in the exact same way if I wasn't doing an ad read for Sources Say. So like I'm being real. I took pictures and like enjoyed the meal and like wanted it to linger. Like I literally have photos of all of it. This one was a smoky chicken and stewed black beans, which I'm telling you was pretty spectacular. Some of the other things I had leading up to that, like I said, the couple of salads. I mean, look at that. Like is that not the most stunning salad you've ever had in your life? Mm-hmm. I mean, just really, really, really good stuff. Very impressed. I was extremely impressed with each and every one of them. But I'm telling you that chicken and black beans was about as good as it gets. Oh, I still have to actually do the read. I was just so excited about like the food itself, and I thought we were just having a nice little conversation about how good the food is. But eat smart at factormeals.com/KSR50 off and use code KSR50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year.
We serious? I didn't get a breakfast one. I didn't realize they had breakfast ones.
Free breakfast for a year? Are you serious? That's code KSR50 off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Like, it's telling me
Another thing, most of my meals had over 30 grams of protein, so if you're trying to do a squat-tober situation, a la Jack Pilgrim, which, by the way, squat-tober, very little squats involved in the whole, and it is true actually. If you listen to Jack Pilgrim's workout routine, like I have the last couple of days, very little squats in Squat-tober. It's pretty much everything but squats actually.
That's not true at all. He chooses the one wrong day, and it actually worked out because we're in a hotel today, and I didn't have like the actual. But that's another time for like we don't have to get into that. But there are plenty of squats in Squat-tober. But see, like the talking points, it wants me to talk about the variety and more meals and supporting my wellness goals. But like I can talk about that all naturally. Like I chose the meals and the salads and I wanted high protein, I wanted low calorie, I wanted low carb, I wanted good fats if I was going to have fats and. All of the selections I had were it checked off every single box that I wanted. And, usually when you get some of these other meal products, they come out and it tastes horrible and you have to pretend that it tastes good, but it's like, in the name of good health. No. It tasted absolutely delicious. In fact, my wife had one. We shared a lunch together on our last day before I headed down to Birmingham. And even she, who isn't just trying to watch the health and all that stuff to a T the way I am right now, she's like, this is like I would order this at a restaurant. So Factor Meals, go shout out Factor Meals. We are very appreciative of their time with the Sources Say podcast. But let's keep rolling through some of these SEC Media Day, SEC Tip-Off 26 takeaways. I got John Calipari to do the John Wall dance today.
You did. Yes, you did.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I asked him about just, John Wall just retired and, obviously a very important figure in his journey as a head coach, and Kentucky, that being kind of the starting point of a magical run for the Wildcats, and just kind of his legacy as in the SEC coaching in the SEC. A lot of it kind of falls back on John Wall. So he talked a lot about that, and he kind of got pretty nostalgic, pretty sentimental about recruiting John Wall, getting him alongside Eric Bledsoe, and how high character guys those two were, and just talked a lot about John Wall's late mother, who passed away unfortunately due to cancer a couple of years ago, and really wanted to kind of put a spotlight on her, and I thought that was a very, very kind gesture from Coach Cal.
I did. I think we already always kind of knew it, but I did think it was cool to hear him say that John Wall and Eric Bledsoe were two peas in a pod at Kentucky, that they were kind of best friends, and people were asking him when they were recruiting Bledsoe, they're like, "Why are you getting him? You've got John Wall. You don't need two." And it kind of ended up working out almost perfectly for Cal in that instance. So, but you hear a lot of it's funny being on the other side now, not being covering Calipari, and you get a lot of the same. Like we know that you get a lot of the same talking points, but like the very first thing he says, he's like, we had a scrimmage the other day, and boy, we're bad. We're gonna get there. And I was like, man, I feel like I've heard that multiple times over the last however many years. Hit on a lot of the talking points, but a lot of the stuff I still agree with him. Like the 5 years to play 4. Like one-time transfers only. Like that's the type of stuff that I agree with him, because we're getting to a point now where it's just becoming a little too ridiculous with how much. I mean, what school on the West Coast is about to have a 2-year G League player on their team? Like, so it is getting a little out of control with the eligibility and things like that. But it also benefits Kentucky because they have a 21-year-old sophomore from Croatia on the team. So it works both ways a little bit. But Calipari, always great to see him. He made fun of our friend Ryan Black from the Courier-Journal that he does every single time they get together. So that was kind of a fun little trip down memory lane for all of us that have experienced those interactions over the last couple of years. It was typical Calipari stuff. And did you talk to DJ? You talked to DJ a little bit, didn't you? Did he say anything of note that you thought? Well, before I actually let you go, sorry, back off, buddy. This is my microphone. I did think it was interesting how he said that DJ, like, he was at his best last year, essentially when Boogie went down, and he started playing point guard. He said that's when he played really well and turned into it, kind of the player that he was at the end of the season and helped push that charge. And then he said, basically implied that this year they're going to have him play more off ball. So Darius Acuff, the 5-star, can play point guard. And it's like, all right, well, you just said that DJ played at his best when he was point guard. So we'll see how that all plays out. But what else did you hear about DJ?
Well, I asked DJ, I said, in today's portal era where everybody's up and leaving, everybody's, you'd get looked at the wrong way by a coach, and you're saying portal, nobody is staying, loyalty is just dead, you're following the dollar, all of those things. I said, in that era, why are you staying with Coach Cal? Like, well, it could have been easy for you when things didn't go super well in year one at Kentucky. They were fine, but injuries happened, and the season ended up with the Oakland and all that. It would have been easy for him to go play at USC or somewhere like that, and he stuck with him for Arkansas. Second year at Arkansas, this first year at Arkansas, second year in college basketball doesn't go great. He finishes strong, but it was still definitely not a, hey, you're on the cusp of turning pro. He came back to college for a third year because he needed a third year of college. Why do you still feel that level of comfort and trust in Coach Cal? And he said, he's the best to ever do it. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a legend, and he said he's been with me for every step of the way. He's been with my family every step of the way. I'm not going to turn my back on him right now. And I thought it was kind of just he didn't say it was a specific part of his game that Cal has really just kind of dug deeper into and is picking and trying to bring the best out of him. It was just kind of just this, I don't want to say even a blind faith thing, but it was just like Cal's my ride or die. We are attached at the hip. We're inseparable. Cal goes as I go, and I go as Cal goes. So there was kind of just a cool, that trust and loyalty right there is a pretty cool thing. We'll see if it works this season. We'll see how Arkansas plays, and DJ being kind of the catalyst for a lot of what they do. But I did appreciate that, knowing kind of how long we've known DJ since he was 12 years old, 13 years old, covering this. So that was a good little sit down.
Remember when DJ was supposed to go play for Kenny Payne for like a couple weeks? Remember that?
Yes, I remember it vividly.
Kind of funny to look back on 3 years later.
Hey, he's playing for Kenny Payne.
You're right. Yes, you are right.
He sure is.
He's playing for Kenny Payne. Yeah.
He sure is. Let's see what else jumped out today. Kenny Brooks. We got some Kenny Brooks time. We talked to Clara Strack. We talked to Tiana Key. We talked to Tony Morgan. So what jumped out at you in the women's side of things?
Two main things I think will stand out. The first was I asked Kenny about recruiting Tiana Key from North Carolina. She dealt with a bunch of injuries, missed her whole freshman season, injured her sophomore and junior seasons, things like that, or redshirt seasons. It's like, see, what still attracted you? Like, what made you want to go get her, this girl that basically hadn't played and was putting up low points, and figure that she's going to be a key piece of your future, essentially. And he's just said, like, she was the first player that I recruited when I got to Kentucky. Like, I'm sure Georgia Moore probably was, but you probably didn't actually have to recruit Georgia anymore. So you just, you start actually looking for the players that you need. He went for Tiana Key. He said he recruited her sister Tamari before she went to Tennessee. Has known Tiana since she was 11 years old. Just had a foundation, like knew what the mentality was of that family and who Tiana was. So it felt very comfortable in bringing her in and putting her in a position to be kind of like one of the star players for this team. Like, she was the second or third, probably third best player on the team last year behind Georgia and Clara Strack, and probably going to be the second best player on this coming team behind Clara Strack. So big things from her, and it was cool to hear that story. The other one that I really liked was Georgia, the school, now has a guard. Her name is I'm forgetting it off the Dana Carnegie, maybe, I think that was her name. Played at Georgia Tech last year. Was pretty much the running mate with Tony Morgan in that backcourt last year. Two of the three leading scorers on that team. They both went in the transfer portal. Danny ended up at Georgia. Obviously, Tony Morgan ended up at Kentucky, and they both kind of confirmed that, they had talks about going to the same school, and kind of to spoil some KS board secrets. I think Phoenix Stevens basically said that, it was probably going to be Kentucky if they had to pick the same school, and obviously that did not happen. Danny, sorry, I know I'm butchering her name. I should just look it up right now, but ended up at Georgia. She's going to have a great starting role there. But I thought that was kind of a cool interaction, because both times they both said that the other person was a dog and that they were one of their best friends. So I thought that was kind of just a cool little dynamic.
Now she is a dog, a bulldog.
She is a bulldog, yes. So that was cool to hear. You got to talk to Tiana Key. Anything cool from there, or anything from Kenny Brooks that really stood out for you?
There's just a championship pedigree that they kind of carry themselves with, and
They talk about it a lot.
They do. I don't know if it's not speaking it into existence, but Kenny Brooks at Big Blue Madness talk like, hey, this is real. Like, we're not just showing up here for craps and giggles. Like, we're here to win at the highest level and continue to break records, and not just like individual season records with, blocks and points, and like, we're here to break records in terms of winning, going to Final Fours and winning national championships here in Lexington. And I almost appreciated, I asked Don Staley, Kenny Brooks referred to this as a sleeping giant at Kentucky. What do you kind of make of the job he's doing and it being classified as a sleeping giant? She's like, well, I don't think that at all. I think Kentucky is Kentucky, and Kenny Brooks was kind of the exact person that Kentucky needed to light just light the match and have the whole place burn. Like, it's there. It's a Kentucky brand. You just need the right person to lead the charge there, and all the resources are there. The investment with Historic Memorial Coliseum. She's like, I wouldn't say it's a sleeping giant. I'd say just maybe like nodding off giant, maybe like just kind of one eye open giant, just kind of waiting for somebody to force their eye to open up. So very high praise there from, as Myron will tell you here shortly, the best in the game on the women's side with Don Staley. Another thing before we start wrapping this thing up, and my battery dies on my laptop, which would really, really be inconvenient right now.
I was thinking about it. I'm going to say 5%.
6%? 8%?
6. That's all we need.
6%. All right. Devin McLaughlin with the Vanderbilt Commodores. Thought it was a good idea. Hey, we're here we're here for 10 hours today. You got to get creative. We got 16 teams to talk to over the course of 2 days. Every team bring in 2-3 players on the men's and women's side. Like, hey, we got a lot of questions asked. If you don't ask questions, or a lot of these players just for kind of inside baseball here. There are a lot of players that if you do not go and talk to them, they will sit there and play on their phones for the entire 15 minutes because nobody comes up and talks to them for the lesser publicized, lesser covered programs. So you kind of like they welcome any and all questions like, hey, it's attention. The alternative is me sitting here and not doing anything. So I thought, hey, Vanderbilt's sitting there. Vanderbilt's a good team and NCAA tournament team projected to go back. So why not ask, a Kentucky question of, hey, what is your reaction as a Vanderbilt Commodore reading a headline that Kentucky has the most expensive roster in college basketball, upward of $20 million? Like how does that kind of play on you at Vanderbilt? It did not go like it went over fine with Devin. He was a great sport about it. He was like, in fact, said kind of a like, whoa, I can't believe he said that. He said, I don't care what other schools are making or paying their players. I think we have a better roster than Kentucky does. And I was like, hey, good on you. Shout out Vanderbilt Commodores saying it with your chest that you think that after beating Kentucky last year that you feel that you can go do it again. Good. It's SEC basketball. You should feel that way. You should have that level of confidence. And let me tell you, man, I put that out there, and people hated it. People were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're giving them bulletin board material. You're pouring gasoline on a fire that doesn't even need to be lit." Like, are we worried about the Vanderbilt Commodores in the year 2025 if we're talking about banner number 9 and our expectations being way, way, way up here and winning the SEC and all that? Like, are we really worried about bulletin board material over a regular season matchup against Vanderbilt? No, we're freaking Kentucky. Like, that's what we do here. We supposed to be SEC. I can't believe the backlash on that. But regardless, Vanderbilt thinks that they have a better roster than Kentucky, and good on them. They should feel confident. They're a very well-coached team, and they have a talented roster. But people did not like my question about the most expensive roster in college basketball talk.
Yeah, my only real response to that is the bulletin board material thing that was kind of being talked about. It's just that it's not really – it's overblown a little bit. Like, do you think that – whenever Kentucky plays Vanderbilt, is McLaughlin going to be thinking about the exact quote that he said that he was asked at SEC Media Days? Is that going to be the thing that pushes him over the edge?
Well, he remember that he even said it.
Well, first of all, if that's what Devin McLaughlin needs to actually play better, then that's a whole other issue on its own. If some quote from Jack Pilgrim of KSR is what has, fueled him for the entire season, it's like, okay, that shouldn't be the thing in the first place. So, yes, I definitely enjoyed watching the KS Boarders, or I should say only a handful of them.
Twitter got to me too.
Twitter, yeah, well, that's Twitter. I mean, you're talking to bots on there, so you're talking to people that don't exist, run from a giant computer hundreds of miles away. But I did enjoy watching a select few amount of people just kind of go and roast you and go at your throat. That was fun.
And I loved our own great buddy Joey Dwyer. Like, even he comes up and he goes, "Did Devin McLaughlin say that Vanderbilt's better?" I was like, yeah, I know. I get it. I'm caught in the middle of this. It wasn't total. I didn't even think twice about it. I was just like, yeah, that's kind of a different angle that we can
I will
try
say,
to hit.
Jack did not ask that question once the rest of the day.
Not worth it. It's just not worth it. There's so much other juice worth squeezing out there. It's not worth it. But I digress. They won in the books.
I got one more talking point.
Absolutely.
Travis Perry.
Oh, good point. I'm glad we got to this.
Let's talk about him. So did you ask the question about him, or
still at 5%?
5%. Is it
Ben Roberts?
Ben Roberts, the
you
Herald leader.
stole my question. I had my hand raised and you stole it.
Yeah, he's coming for you, Ben Roberts. And Mikhail McLean wants to play KSR in a coaches battle.
On that too. So
we'll talk about that.
Travis Perry. I'll end it with.
So Travis Perry, Ben Roberts asked him basically, what's the expectations, things like that. Chris Beard's answer was good. We kind of knew that Chris Beard recruited Travis Perry when he was still at Lyon County, and he said he was literally the first recruit that he called when he got the job at Ole Miss. I'm not sure if I totally believe that or not, but it's definitely like I can believe. He could convinced me that actually happened. Talked about his dad, Ryan, and how he loves talking basketball with him. Just basically said he's just a tireless worker. Something we've heard since before he even got to Kentucky was just his work ethic and how, how that kind of just drives him. But the quote that really caught my eye was the very last sentence he said about Travis, where he said, "We need Travis to play the best basketball of his life for Ole Miss to have this season that we want to have." Which I thought was interesting because he's definitely going to be your backup point guard or backup two guard or wherever he plays. I think either he or one of his teammates, Travis Perry's teammates, said that he's playing more point guard. I believe it was AJ Storr said that he shoots 1,000 threes a day. He's always in the gym. Malik Dia was bragging on him, just saying that he's a great overall teammate. He's kind of ribbing him for beating Kentucky, or the infamous Mark Pope punches something in the locker room game or whatever happened there. So they kind of ribbed him for that. But, yeah, there was a lot of some love going around with Travis Perry there, which I think he deserves, because I know a lot of BBNers don't like how things unfolded with Travis. A little bit understandable, especially because you have Trent kind of in a similar situation. He stays. But, I think Travis is going to do well there. I think he's put in a situation where, Chris Beard's going to work him hard. Travis Perry's going to gladly take that on. He's going to work hard as well. I think his work ethic is going to get him to a point where he's just always in the conversation for rotational minutes at a big school like this. So it'll be interesting to see how it actually unfolds, and if he gets, do we see Travis Perry playing 15, 18 minutes a game this season as the backup point guard for Ole Miss? I think that would be kind of his ideal goal. That's probably what he's shooting for. But, they want him to play point guard. They want him to kind of be that guy that facilitates and runs the offense more than just a shooter. That was Chris Beard's main talking point. We want him to be more than just a shooter. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him play, especially because Ole Miss comes to Lexington this year as well, so that we'll be able to get to see that with our own two eyes. So the Travis Perry notes I thought were definitely – they were notable. The notes were notable on Travis Perry today.
Also notable, Mikhail McLean. So you're breaking chairs in Mark Pope's living room, first of all, and now you're calling us out for a game of 5-on-5. Like, is this how we're going to do this? Are we publicly challenged and having to embarrass you guys? All right, yeah, I'm game. I'm good. He posts on Twitter. So, backstory: the Boston Celtics hosted a coaches versus media game where the final score, clip, I believe, was 59-4.
Well, the clip was just you see like one of the coaches, a Celtics staffer, just draining a shot from like 4 feet behind the line, and then the camera slowly pans up, and the score is 57-4 or something like that. Obviously, the Celtics coaches are winning, and that kind of spurred a little bit of some fun Twitter talk.
Yeah, Mikhail McLean quote tweeted that and said, "Coaches versus KSR would feed families." Yeah, my family. It'd put food on the table because I'd put $100,000 on
We're live streaming that one.
on KSR to. I wouldn't. Yeah. I'm in.
I think
let's do this.
So what's our starting five? I think we have to do some crossover because Nick and his size. Nick Roush at 6'5" or 6'6", probably got to put him at center. Him and Pope banging around in the post.
Yeah,
2 bald guys just going at it in the post. Wouldn't that be great? Stephen Peak, go sit in your corner, Stephen. But we're going to feed you because he's a sharpshooter. Give him buckets. Jack Pilgrim, power forward, kind of your small ball 4.
I've been compared to Grant Williams in my day, so I'd be a nice little stretch.
Personality-wise, I see it. Yeah.
I could give us some good minutes at stretch 4 spot. So we got a good 5, we got a good 4. Are we putting Steven at the 2?
Steven the 2 probably.
I think you'd be a good 3 for us.
I'll play the 3. Yeah.
I think you got some good 3 to us. But who is our lead guard?
I mean, just for the hilarity, it has to be Jacob Polachek.
Oh God!
Even if he's not playing basketball out there,
we would get cooked.
What did Steven say?
Mario, the one.
Mario.
Okay.
Well,
thank
that's
God,
a radio
Mario.
show crossover.
No, I'm cool with it.
Mario actually played college basketball.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. We're taking Mario.
Sorry, Jacob.
We're talking about Jason Hart, who played in the NBA, Mark Pope, who played in the NBA, Alvin Brooks, who played D1 basketball, Mikhail McLean, who played at Houston. We need as much help as we humanly possibly can. So yeah, we're taking Mario, and we're going to enjoy every second of it. But Mikhail, hey. We just had you. We were kind to you. We had you on this show, and you're calling us out, and we don't appreciate it. So set it up. It's time. We're going. Beat that butt. All right, we got to get out of here. On the other side of this, we will have a one-on-one interview, two-on-one interview with ESPN's Myron Medcalf. Appreciate him coming on. Fans, enjoy this, and we will be back tomorrow for day 2 of SEC Tip-Off 26 here in Birmingham, Alabama. We'll see you next time. And we're back. Look at us. Beautiful. Birmingham. Year 2 with our own, kind of our own with, you do the thing with Matt Jones and you kind of
I think Kentucky people have claimed me.
You're a step in with KSR, but hey, we love you, and it's not Mondays with Myron, but it's going to be Tuesdays with Myron here on the Source Say podcast. We're here at SEC Media Days or SEC Tip-Off 26, whatever they want to name it here. But Myron was with us last year. We had a good old time, so we're going to just run it back, do it for a second year in a row. So Myron, all fans want to know just kind of the national championship expectation of the Kentucky Wildcats, year 2 under Mark Pope. Just your vibe watching Mark Pope talk today and, kind of hearing from some of the players and stuff, do you think that's something that Kentucky fans should be able to buy into?
Yeah, I mean, you want me to hold it?
Yeah, we can just
How are we doing this? Are we live? Is this live?
We're recording.
Oh, okay.
It's live.
Okay,
we're
cool.
Live.
I mean, it's been the same expectation for like 75 years or something, right? So I don't think that part's. It'd be more surprising if Mark Pope was like, you know what, I don't know if we can win it all, right? That'd be a little shocking. So I think the difference is, I think certainly year 2, he feels more comfortable. I think that's kind of what you saw today. It's like this wasn't a guy who was trying to sell the idea that he could be the leader of that program. Everyone knows this is the dude. He's proven it. Proved it in year 1, so that's out of the way. Now I think they have more depth than they had a year ago. They have the pieces. Obviously, Jaden is a big question mark. But, if you tell me this team is healthy come March, you could certainly see them making a run to the Final Four. And then who knows what happens from there. But I think more than anything, I think Mark Pope just seemed like he was more confident and comfortable compared to last year. I don't think he lacked confidence last year. But last year was still, at this event, was a little bit more of, hey, tell everybody why you have the job kind of thing. He's over that. Like, everyone saw the results last year, and now he's ready to get to work.
In terms of the SEC pecking order, Kentucky picked to finish second behind only Florida in the SEC. We know, Florida coming off the national championship and the hype and surrounding Todd Golden and all that. Does second feel right for Kentucky in terms of, BBN wanting to also not just win a national championship, but also kind of get the wins along the way that also include winning the regular season championship in the SEC and then obviously, doing it again down in Nashville at the SEC tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it feels right to me. I mean, you're going against a Florida team that won a national championship, brought its entire front court back, and added a couple of really dynamic guards after losing the best backcourt in America. So I think there's still question marks with Florida. I was just down there in Gainesville. The pieces are there to make another run, but I think at the end of the day, when you have returning players from a national championship squad, I think most people just go, they're number one. Where I think Kentucky has an advantage right now is I think they have depth at every position if Jaden gets healthy. I think that, to me, will help down the line. Like, a lot of this game is who's going to be healthy in March. You saw that with Kentucky. I mean, how many times did Mark have 7 healthy guys? So a lot of that is the game. And I think they have more depth to where, you don't want anyone to ever get hurt, but if someone isn't available, this team, to me, feels even more equipped to handle that than last year's team. I mean, they weren't practicing for long stretches last year because of all the injuries. But I think they're right there with Florida. I think they're in the Florida tier. I think they're a Final Four contender, and I don't know that anyone could be upset about that.
You feel free to jump in. I might just kind of hold it and we can do this thing because I feel like
I'll ask him something. You've mentioned Jaden's injury a couple of times. Is that, do you think, the biggest X factor for this season's team, or is there anything else in particular you're really interested to see throughout the course of the season?
Yeah, so I think if you want to say, like, and I know Mark's a big analytics guy. Like, what's the difference between a good Kentucky team and a great Kentucky team? I think it will be in their ability to force turnovers, which they weren't good at last year. But I think if they can I think they have the personnel to make a significant jump, right? Like, my prediction is if Kentucky is forcing turnovers on 16% of their opponents' possessions this year, which last year would have been about 8th in the SEC. That's a Final Four team. And if you watch the trend last season down the stretch in the final games, they were actually better at that. Like a team with that offense getting those extra possessions, that can be the difference. So I think that's a factor. Obviously, Ortega, we know what he does. And whether or not will these guys click. So much of this, I think people forget. I hate when people say they're pros now. They're actually not, right? They're college kids,
yes.
right? Like they're college kids hanging out with other college kids and dealing with everything that comes with that over the course of a long season. These players can get into a fight with a friend and it can ruin their day. So there are so many elements of this when you're dealing with young players. We've seen a lot of good teams that look like Kentucky in college basketball over the last 5 years in the portal era, and then you find out guys didn't like each other. Guys didn't get along. If guys like each other in January, then you have something, So I think, to me, the pieces come together. But in terms of personnel, Jaden is such a major factor. Like, if you have Jaden out there, I don't know that this game has anyone physically comparable to Jaden in college basketball. Like, I don't know if anyone has that. Are there some talented players, your Trey Kaufman, Renz, and guys like that across basketball? Yes. But I don't know if anyone has that. If you ask people who saw that exhibition against Arizona State and Duke last year, they'll tell you that, like, Jaden gave Cooper Flagg his toughest matchup. No one saw it. It was an exhibition. And this was a Jaden who at the time, I think he was 17.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a dude who's 18. You're talking about a dude who is still a very young player coming off injury. To me, it matters who is he in March. Because as much as Mark Pope said he's racing to get back, what's the one thing Mark Pope hasn't said? When is he coming back? Yeah. Because I guarantee they are not going to put him out there unless he's 100% ready to contribute. And I think a lot of people forget this too, especially with young players, and I talk to players all the time, mentally after an ACL injury. It's not just physically. It's you see guys, okay, can I move the same way? Can I be as explosive? And a dude with that kind of body, you have to be sure that he's ready to go. But if you tell me he's available down the stretch of the season, they're just not another Jaden, I don't think, in college basketball. There aren't many people who have a dude who's going to be able to deal with that on top of everything else.
So how valuable is it in your eyes having, in the spirit of the SEC, two intra-conference transfers in Denzel Aberdeen coming over from a national championship team and Mo Diabate doing the same from Alabama, Final Four, Elite Eight, and then also Jalen Lowe, maybe not a guarantee, but feels like a pretty safe bet as an all-SEC guy. And then Ortega being Otega Owe. Having those four is kind of the, hey, this is the stopgap. We can bide a lot of time while we wait for Jaden to get back to full strength. Having some four guarantees to enter the season.
Yeah, I don't think Jaden is determines whether or not Kentucky will be a great team. I think they're a great team now, right? But that next level, cutting down the nets, I do think he factors into that. But all the guys you just named are important. Like Jalen, I did a couple of pick games last year, and I think Jalen, and he'll admit this, like when that dude's in a rhythm, he can be unstoppable. But I think he's one of those guys where he has to get into a rhythm. And I think the challenge on a talented team like this is if you're not in a rhythm, someone else is, and then you kind of get passed by. So I think this is a guy who his potential is very high. I think Jalen Lowe's a really good player. I think the way he shot the ball was not indicative of who he is as a shooter. And I think he'll be better. He'll be more comfortable. I mean, Mo obviously coming out and being a guy who has that winning pedigree is going to help. You have a guy in Ortega who's the preseason player of the year. But I think Denzel, to me, I could see Denzel being like your second or third most important player in the tournament. Like he obviously is a guy who's won, not only just won, he was out there for the final possession of the national championship, right? And he said today that the reason he came to Kentucky, it was a personal choice. You're talking about a dude who was in line to run the Florida Gators. There's no Boogie Flan at Florida if Denzel stays, right?
He might be Kentucky.
So, I mean, yeah, this is a dude who was in a situation where they were going to hand him the keys to a team that had just won a national championship. And whatever his reasons were, he said, I want to play at Kentucky. I don't know that that's ever happened for someone in that position. So I love Denzel's game. I always thought he was a dog. I always thought he was a guy who, when given the opportunity, and last year it was really hard with that backcourt. It was so good. I think come March, he'll be good throughout the season, but in the postseason, the guys you named, that's when it's going to count because you have guys who have experience, confidence, and they're just not going to be rattled by the moment. So I think Denzel's a huge pickup.
In terms of, we know the guarantees, if you will, but there's a group of wild cards that if you could get one or two of the Jasper Johnsons, Colin Chandler, Trent Noah, Cam Williams, it feels like there are a lot of guys in that group where that could kind of swing either way. Do you like anybody from that group of the next, maybe lesser talked about group of Wildcats that could kind of swing Kentucky from a Final Four versus an Elite Eight or banner number 9?
I mean, I think I've heard the most buzz about Malachi in terms of guys surprising people just in practices and things like that. That's the name you hear the most. I mean, Jasper, everybody knows Jasper, 5-star guy. I think this is a team, like any team, I don't care how many players are played during the regular season, come mid-February, you're going to have 7 or 8 guys, right? So I don't know that it's about one guy separating himself on a team full of veterans. I think it's about multiple guys being comfortable stepping up. Like, you look at that Florida team, and yes, there was Walter Clayton and Elijah Martin and all of these really talented players, but if you go through that tournament, there was just like a 7th dude who was like, all right, I'm coming in and making a play. I think that's what you have to compete for a championship. So I think they have a strong roster of guys who can do that. But I don't know if any of those guys are ever going to be the headliners because you got the preseason SEC Player of the Year. You got Denzel coming off a national championship. You have Jaden and everything that he's been able to do. And you might in, I don't know, December, January, February, have the number 5 or 4 pick in the NBA draft just showing up. So it's like, this is one of those teams where I would say that pool of guys you just mentioned, going back to these are college kids. What's your mentality? If in December you're a guy who's playing 15 minutes a game and then Jaden shows up and now you're playing 11 or 9, are you good with that? Like, those are the things that the Mark Posts of the world have to navigate. And I think that's a chemistry thing. Like, that's about, okay, what's the ultimate goal and is everybody on board with it? And you're not going to know that until it happens. But last year it was the injuries, and that was the uncertainty, so you just never knew who would be available. This year, there's a dude who could be a top 5 pick just sort of waiting in the wings. And once he shows up, they're going to make room for Jaden, they're not going to make him wait to earn a spot. He gets the spot. So how does the team adjust in what could be sort of these multiple in-season chapters as they get healthy?
Yeah, you mentioned the depth, and Pope last year kind of had to use the depth because of the injuries and everything, but that was something he talked about all season long about wanting to get those guys extra touches, extra feel, just to feel the game was kind of his thing. At what point this season, because Kentucky's already been labeled as having one of the deepest rosters in the country, at what point in the season do you think he actually does maybe chop that down to a 7 or an 8-man rotation? Does it get to that point?
Yeah, I think most coaches are going to get down to 7 or 8 guys. I mean, I think once you get in the SEC, it's hard to play young guys who can't compete at that level, and that's nothing wrong with young guys. It's just such a physical league. Like, these are grown men who will run you over if you're not ready, and I don't care who you're playing. I think the other thing is you're going into these road environments and playing in some really difficult venues. So for me, it's like, who's ready for that? Like, I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. But I think most coaches would say by mid-January, you want to be in the 8, 9. Like, when coaches are like, they got 9, 10 guys, most of them are lying, right?
Yeah.
Like, because they don't have 9 or 10 guys that they would play in the national championship game. They might have 9 or 10 guys they're playing against a mid-major in December. They don't have 9 or 10 guys they're playing when it really counts down the stretch. So I think the benefit of this Kentucky team is they have a pool of guys, which last year, to your point, they didn't have that because of the injuries. And I think the biggest thing that is ignored about last year is they couldn't practice. Yeah. Like, this was a team that didn't practice consistently because they literally couldn't. Like, you could not hold practices because of the injuries or the risk of injury. So now I think that, to me, is going to really help this team prepare, just the fact that they can be on the floor together and compete.
We talked about Florida. We talked about Kentucky. Who else in the SEC, doesn't have to be 3 or 4, but is there anybody kind of deeper in the weeds of the conference that you kind of see as a sneaky, like, hey, if the ball bounces the right way here, or, they have some good luck here, I like the core. I like some of these pieces. They have some upside. Who else are you looking at in the conference who could, be sneaky double bye picks or whatever the case may be in the SEC?
I think Dennis Gates has some talent coming in at Missouri. Again, I think this is one of those leagues where there just isn't going to be an easy game ever. Like South Carolina was in games last year that they shouldn't have been, but they were. But I like Missouri and what's possible there. I think there are more question marks. Who is Stephen Pearl as a coach? We don't know. We know him as an assistant. It's Tahad Pettiford, the guy we saw next to an All-American. Is that the real Tahad Pettiford? We're going to find out because now he has this starring role. So I think Auburn's one of those teams where you go with a new coach, Tahad Pettiford stepping into a new role. You could see them competing in the top tier. You could see them struggling because I think this is a league that just doesn't give you a lot of room to make big mistakes. I think Sean Miller, the roster isn't what it will be in the future, but if you're telling me X's and O's, I think Sean Miller can compete with any coach in this league. I think he's that good. So I think Sean Miller's just in a situation where he's going to end up in 3 or 4 close games that are down to 3 points in the last 45 seconds, and he's going to win, right, against a team that maybe shouldn't be at this stage. So I just think you got really good coaching across the league, but I think Sean Miller is a guy to watch just because the talent isn't there in full yet, but I think his coaching is going to be able to supersede a lot of that. So I just think, you name the team, and on any day, I think they could beat anyone else. I mean, Vandy, a lot of people aren't talking to Vandy. I know they love that team and kind of what they're able to bring. I think they'll be tough. I think they'll be able to rebound. I think they'll be able to defend. So I think just those are a couple teams across the league, but there just won't be any easy games. And I know everybody says that across America, like everyone says that, but like go look at what LSU did in a bunch of close games that they had no business being in. Go look at South Carolina hanging with some of the top teams in America for 30 minutes, 25 minutes. Like that's the kind of league you're dealing with.
Who is being talked about too much that you're not as high on, somebody that you have way too many questions about that you think will not be able to be answered by the time March Madness rolls around?
Please don't say Kentucky.
Well, I go to all these schools, so I think they're all, I don't know that I have one. I mean, Alabama and the injuries, right? Latrell Wrightsell Jr. coming back. I mean, you lose. They lost some really, really high-level players. And I think the problem with the portal and our mentality is people will say, well, you lost 5 players and then you just went out and got 5 players. Like, that's the attitude now. But, like, who were the dudes you lost? You lost the first-team All-American, man. There's nobody in the portal who's going to be Mark Sears. Yeah. I don't care what you do. Like, he's gone. That's a dude who is very unique in everything that he's able to do. A Grant Nelson, that's a unique kind of guy. So I think the problem with the portal language is we're just like everyone just hits reset. With what? Like, why do we act like there are like 5 KDs or something in the portal? There's not. There's a bunch of dudes who, let's be honest, out of high school weren't good enough to play at a lot of these schools or weren't viewed as that kind of a commodity. A lot of them have worked their way up to be in this position, but the way that we act like there's just 28 All-Americans and coaches just get to go pick and choose who they want, it's a lie. So I think Alabama lost a lot. And even though they have some returning talent, the way they play and the way Mark Sears ran that team was just very unique. I went to Alabama practice last year. It is the fastest practice I've never seen a team play. They just go play pickup. Like, sometimes you'll see a coach, kind of like, all right, we're doing this, we're running this play. Nados just lets them go. Like, they just play YMCA pickup ball, and they play at the fastest speed I've ever seen in my entire life. You can do that when you have really, really elite talent that can handle that pace, and Mark Sears was unique. And I think sometimes we take great players for granted, and we just assume, don't worry, we can get a guy like that. And you actually can. So I want to see what Alabama is after losing, to me, one of the best players that this game has seen in a long time.
Mo Diabate as well.
Good point. Got one more. If you have anything else you want to.
Well, I kind of have an overarching question.
Okay.
You 8 men's basketball coaches today. You heard from, talked to. Your favorite moment that stuck out from the last 10 hours that we've been here today?
It was 10 hours. I mean, I don't know if it was a men's coach. I think it was Dawn Staley saying that she doesn't think there'll ever be a woman who will be hired as a head coach in the NBA. I mean, that's Dawn Staley, who by the way, has a better resume than anybody that was on this stage, a better resume than anyone who will be on the stage tomorrow. I mean, just if you're going to hire the first female head coach, you don't pick her over Mike Brown. Like Mike Brown came into a room and was like, hey, everybody, I was an assistant at Golden State, got fired from the King. Like, and that dude impressed you? So I think when Dawn says it, who is arguably the most accomplished woman in her position, one of the accomplished coaches ever, says it's not going to happen, that's tough, man. So that was a moment, and people reacted to that because it was like, man, if she doesn't believe it, what does that mean for everybody else? So I thought that to me was like a really big moment. And then later, Cal talking about transactional relationships and that being something where he doesn't want any part of that, And I think a lot of coaches feel that way. I think a lot of coaches feel like agents are calling them, families are calling them and saying, how much can you offer? And I do think you made a point that's important. I want to know if we're all going to be around 15 years from now when some of these guys have not graduated, when they don't have a campus or a community to go back to, because they have been to 3 or 4 schools. Like, I do think that can matter down the road. Like, I worry that we don't care enough about the 35-year-old versions of these guys who are transferring. I'm fine with transferring. I'm fine with NIL, rev share. I want people to get all the money they deserve. I'm all about the free market. Get your money. But I do worry about those stories I know I'll tell 15 years from now when it's the dude who was at multiple schools, maybe they didn't win anything, and now he's got no place to kind of be connected to. I know a bunch of those dudes now. But I know guys who also struggled after basketball. Maybe they played pro, got hurt, whatever, and just needed a reset in life. And I can't tell you how many dudes I know who called their former coach, called someone in that community and said, hey, man, I just need a fresh start. And they got a job, and they got back into school, and they moved their family back to that college town that they had been in for those 3 or 4 years. Like, that matters. So I just think that's the side of the story that we're not telling. We're seeing the talent, but we're not seeing, okay, what happens years from now. I walk into gyms all the time, and I see dudes who you're like, wait, is that? And it's a dude he's a GA. Or he's a dude just hanging out, hoping that the coach gives him some sort of job, a volunteer position. Dudes trying to get in school. I see these dudes all the time where you're like, wait, is that? Well, I thought he was playing. No, he's just trying to figure it out. And I think we're doing a disservice to a lot of these young athletes by not thinking more about what happens 15 years from now.
Yeah. There's Coach Cal for you. He knows how to kind of get a message across and make you think. All right, you've been just so gracious with your time. We're so appreciative of that. One last thing from me. Why will Kentucky be cutting down the nets in April, and what will be holding them back from cutting down the nets in April? Give me the fork in the road. What goes right for Kentucky to win it all, and what goes wrong for Kentucky to not win it all?
Jaden returns healthy by early January in time for the SEC season, and he looks like a top 5 pick, and they're tougher defensively. Like, I don't think they have to be great defensively. I don't know that Mark Pope's system demands that to the same degree. Not that he doesn't care about defense, but they're pushing the ball, and they're daring you to get into a track meet, and few teams can do that. But if they're just slightly better defensively, again, that's 16% mark my word, at the end of the season. 16%, their turnover rate for opponents. If they hit that mark, They're going to be a Final Four team. Why don't they cut down the nets? Jaden comes back. He's not ready. Doesn't come back. Has issues kind of getting ready to play to his ceiling. And then they just don't invest in defense the way that I think they have to. But I think they're tougher, than they were a year ago. And that's nothing against last year's team. I just think like dudes like Denzel, that's like a real dude you're talking about. Jalen, those are real dudes who they didn't come here to mess around.
Awesome, man. Myron Medcalf, ESPN, does all the radio shows, does the incredible work with ESPN.com, man. We appreciate your time, and hopefully the good scenario of that happens, and Kentucky fans, we can all celebrate.
16%, mark my word.
We can all celebrate. So we'll wrap up the show right here, and we'll see you next time. Go Cats.